Introducing Bluehost Cloud, ultra-fast WordPress hosting with 100% uptime. Want a website with unmatched power, speed, and control? Of course you do. And now you can have all three with Bluehost Cloud, the new web hosting plan from Bluehost. With 100% uptime and incredibly speedy load times, your WordPress websites will be dependable and lightning fast on a global scale. Plus, your sites can handle even the biggest traffic spikes without going down or lagging. And with Bluehost Cloud, you get 24/7 WordPress priority support, meaning you're connected to WordPress experts anytime you need them. Not to mention, you automatically get daily backups and world-class security. So, what are you waiting for? Get Bluehost Cloud today by visiting Bluehost.com. That's Bluehost.com.
From Naples, Florida, this is the One Extraordinary Marriage Show, where being busy is overdone, romancing is fun, and scheduling sex has taken the guesswork out of wondering when you're going to get some. I'm Tony DiLorenzo, your co-host, along with my beautiful wife, Elisa. From coast to coast and around the world, thank you for joining us. It's time to talk sex, love, and commitment. Give us a call or text us on the Hug Hotline at 858-876-5663 or send us an email to hugs@oneextraordinarymarriage.com. In today's episode, we're discussing what the statement, "I'm only having sex because you want it," has on your marriage.
And there's a quote from Bertrand Russell that says, "A sense of duty is useful in work, but offensive in personal relations. People wish to be liked, not endured with patient resignation." And I think as we talk about that statement, I'm only having sex because you want it, that really does feel like that patient resignation. And we're going to be talking about that much more so in today's episode. But before I even get to the hug, I have to say, I was listening to you share the opening, Tony, and legitimately now we're coast to coast.
We are coast
I had
to
that
coast.
revelation. I'm like, oh, we're now West Coast, East Coast, and the West Coast of the East Coast and all that kind of stuff. But it was just one of those little aha moments as we settle into our new home here in Naples, Florida. But
we have gone coast to coast.
We have gone coast to coast, and we know you are too. And, when we start every episode with a hug, it's really an opportunity for us to share what those across the world and across the country, what they're doing in the marriage and the transformations that they've been having in their own lives. And this hug comes from a comment that was in the Facebook group regarding one's ability to discuss sexual intimacy. And this person says, "Tony and Lisa, as well as several others in the same space, are very frank about how couples need to be open discussing sex, discussing desires, likes, dislikes, ideas formed about what they were taught growing up. Discussing fantasies and early sexual experiences and trauma shape how we approach sex in our marriage. I have been married 34 years and grew up in the church, and sex was not talked about at all. Although my wife and I began our sex life in a very positive way at the beginning of our marriage, we still experienced a lot of ups and downs over the first 29 years. The last 5 years for us have been an unbelievable journey of going through very raw, open conversations, reading books, listening to hundreds of podcasts, etc. I can tell anyone that sex after 30 plus years of pure monogamy, that couples 50 plus can reinvent their sex lives to incredible levels. That's why I want to talk about it, because if we can change, grow, and improve it like we have, anyone can. Myths and misconceptions dispelled, new desires and experiences occur daily.
Wow. That is unbelievably awesome.
30 plus years of marriage, over 50, reinventing their sex lives to incredible levels.
I love it. And that's what it's all about, to strengthen those pillars, and especially that sexual intimacy pillar takes each and every other pillar as well, which I'm sure they've had to address and look at. And yet what I love about it, Elisa, is two things. And we say this often: be intentional and take action. And I don't care how old you are. I don't care how long you've been married. Are you willing to be intentional, and are you willing to take action? And sometimes it's just that, hey, we're gonna step into something new to see what's gonna happen. So
yeah,
I love it.
That's so awesome. And, as Tony said at the top of this episode, we're talking about this statement, "I'm only having sex because you want it." And, this came out of the fact that I'd recently had a couple of conversations with coaching clients in regard to sexual intimacy. And that phrase kept coming up. "I'm only having sex because my spouse wants it." And
I'm assuming this can go either way.
It can go either way. Yes.
Right. This isn't just a one-sided
It's not just the women saying this. It's not just men saying this. But generally after that first statement, I'm only having sex because my spouse wants it, there's a second statement that says, I could take it or leave it.
Ooh, I've heard those words before.
I have said actually both of those phrases.
Yeah, and I've said the first. I don't know if I've ever said I could take it or leave it, but I've definitely said I'm only having sex because you want it.
Mm-hmm. And, you know, when those words are said, I can tell you from my own personal experience, I wasn't concerned at all about how Tony felt. It came from a very selfish space. I didn't care to discover what had happened. It wasn't like we started our marriage where I'm like, I'm only having sex because you want to have sex. That was not the early years of our marriage. It became this thing that evolved over time. And I had found myself in a place where sexual intimacy, and I would even venture to say probably most of the pillars of intimacy, were not a priority. I was kind of in, you know, I'm in my own lane. I'm doing my own thing. Yes, I'm married to you, but I'm kind of like single married, right? Where it's like we're sharing a bed, but we're at a place where we're not sharing any of the intimacies. And so sex was like one more thing. And it was something to be, you know, again, it's like that quote that I opened this episode with, something to be endured with patient resignation. Like clearly you got needs. I will have sex with you because you need it. And, you know, like I'll take it or leave it. I'll just kind of like be a lump on a log.
Yeah. I had to close my eyes a lot during those years because if I looked if I had to look at Elisa, her facial expression wasn't the best to look at. And that's not a harsh statement against you now. That's where we were. That's where we were. Vastly different now. But when you said that, it just brought me back to many a moment where I didn't want to look at you because you were a lump on a log, and I felt like, why are we doing this? There was no joy. There was no excitement. There wasn't even a glimpse of like excitement. And so that was just one of those, you definitely endured. And I think the spouse also endures too, because there is a lot of hurt and pain because you don't want to feel like, and personally I didn't want to feel like I was forcing you to be sexually intimate with me. Mm-hmm. And yet that can be the underlying feeling though.
Sure. And it's one that, you know, others in the One Family have mentioned in that space of, you know, what's the impact, right? Mm-hmm. Because something like this, there might be like a one-off, right? Like I'm not feeling it tonight. You know, I'm only having sex like because you want it. Like this is just where we're at. Mm-hmm. But this phrase, when it becomes repetitive in a marriage, when it becomes a situation, when it becomes a pattern of behavior, can have huge impacts on both of you. This is not just words that just kind of get like tossed out there and it's just like, no big deal. And I want to share some numbers with you because last week on an Instagram poll, we asked the question, when it comes to your sexual intimacy, has the phrase, I'm only having sex because you want it, been said in your marriage? And the two options were, I've said it, or I've heard it. Now, 51% of you said that you have been the one to say that phrase.
Mm-hmm. And again, we have a vast community that is the One Family. So this isn't just the wives saying it. And I just want to make that clear because I think when we hear this, that's what society would tell us how it goes. Mm-hmm. It's the wife who's saying, you know, I'm only having sex because you want it. And yet, having been behind these microphones for 14 plus years, Elisa and I have heard from many a wives whose husbands have said this too. Mm-hmm. So I just want to be very clear that stereotypes can sometimes fog the actuality of what's happening in marriage as a whole. This may be how it is in your marriage, but I just want everybody to understand, like, it could be either way right now. Mm-hmm. You know, you could be hearing this as a wife and you could be hearing this as a husband.
Absolutely. So 51% of the respondents said that they have said that phrase and 49% said they've heard it. And this is one of the few polls where the numbers have been so close that I'm like, okay, so basically we're within a margin of 2. So I'm going to go out on a limb and say roughly 50% of the marriages, this phrase is being uttered. Somebody's saying it and somebody's hearing it. And that dynamic, when you start to understand, and I'm going to share some of the comments that folks made on the impact that this phrase is having on them and on their marriage, people were saying things like, it's like when your kid has to obediently eat the veggies they don't like, there's no joy in it. I was like, oh, that's such a good picture of just like having to scoop up the veggies because, you just got to do it because somebody's just saying you got to eat the veggies. Other ones like it changes the dynamics. There's no pleasure. I haven't said it, but I've thought it. And that doesn't feel great either.
That's a really good one that we probably need to sit on just for a second. You may be thinking, well, I've never said it. And yet you've thought it. And don't forget, our mind leads us in every direction. What we put into our mind and what we are believing and what is on repeat is going to come to fruition. We can put negative in and we're going to get negative out. We can put positive in and positive is going to come out. So you may be like, oh, this doesn't equate to me, but that hits me. And I'm like, oof, I think there have been things that I've said in my own mind that I've never uttered the words that has played itself out in our bedroom and in our marriage.
Some of the other responses were gives the feeling of not being loved. Makes me feel like it's forced sex, and that feels horrible. That's what you were saying earlier.
Yeah, that's the way I felt. And there was always this weird, that was just like, there was such a weird tension in that as your husband, and how do I express that? Because it's like, I want to be connected with you. And yet at the other side of it, it's like, is this force and does she really want it? And so you just sort of get in your mind. It becomes
a mind game.
In my mind, I was like, what did she, it was just weird. Cause sometimes we'd have sex and you just literally just get up and not say a word and just walk to the bathroom. And I'd be like, okay. Like, and so you're sitting there going like, ugh. I don't know. It's a weird place to be.
And truthfully, guys, this is why we do episodes like this. I'm watching Tony relive those experiences. And clearly his memory of that is different than mine. And this isn't I don't think he's right or that type of thing. But it's more like we've been married almost 28 years. And we have a lot of history. And you can get into this place where you think, okay, you know what? It's not that big a deal. It's not that big a deal that and I will tell you that in those moments, I probably thought, you know what? My husband needs to have sex. Look, I might not be up for it right now, but I'm just going to have sex and I'm only doing this because you want to. And I'm like, on some level, I can tell you there's a little part of my brain going, good job, Elisa. Like you recognize he wants to have sex. So you're like willing to have sex. But with the gift of hindsight, I'm looking at this going, holy crap. Like, I think about where our sex life is now, and I'm like, man, if I just like got up after sex and like didn't say a word, like I can't even envision it. And I watch him, and I know we're not on video, so you guys can't see this, but seeing his experiences and going, hold up. It's like somebody said, I have a lower desire, but would never say this to my husband. I think it would deflate him as he gets pleasure out of taking care of me. That it would deflate him. It would deflate her. It's a knife to the heart. Other people said, you don't desire me. You're just getting it done to get it done. And I want to be real clear in this episode. Like, we are not saying you always have to say yes. Right. This is not you never get to, say no to your spouse. You never get to say, hey, I'm genuinely not in the mood and I've had a rough, I don't feel good, whatever. Like, that's not what we're saying. We're talking in this episode so specifically about when these become patterns, when more often than not, one spouse or the other is saying, look, I'm only having sex with you because you want it.
And let's be clear, even in our own marriage, there are still probably some times throughout the month, or at least once a month probably, where I'm like, Elisa, you look hot. You've been looking hot all day. In her mind, she's just sort of like, do, whatever. Like, I'm going through my day, just doing our stuff here, whatever it may be going, which is fine. And I can come, and I'm not really initiating in any way. There's no
Flirting.
There's nothing that's showing that I am aroused or have been aroused. And so it could come at like 8:30, 9 o'clock at night. I'm like, I'm horny. You know what I mean? And there are those moments where Elisa's like, okay. You know what I mean? So, and even in that moment, sometimes I'm like, hey, and I've learned over time, like, are you just saying okay because I'm horny, or will you get into this? Because again, it comes to this, are you only having sex because I want it?
Mm-hmm.
And, if it's like, yeah, I'm sort of tired of this, then I'm sort of like, you know what, let's not worry about it. I can wait. Can we have sex tomorrow morning or something of that nature so you can be engaged with? And other times she's like, no, it's cool. Like, I can get engaged. Like, let's go.
And I think that's a big part of it. Like, if that phrase is being uttered over and over again, it's so important to look at the total dynamics. This is not just about your sexual intimacy. I know that's what it's being wrapped around, but I promise you it's not just about your sexual intimacy. And we need to talk about that after this break. Whether you're taking care of your kids, a senior loved one, or juggling both, we all need a break sometimes. Care.com can help give you that break by helping you find trusted caregivers right in your neighborhood. As we've gotten older, this is something that Tony and I talk about. When our kids were little, having a trusted sitter was like gold. As the kids have gotten older, so have our parents, and their needs are different. Yet we still want help that's trusted because asking for help isn't something to feel guilty about. You can give more to the ones you love when you get help where you need it. See why 29 million families have turned to Care.com. Find background-checked, highly rated sitters, nannies, and senior caregivers who can help with everything from watching kids after school to meal prep for seniors. You call the shots and find what's right for you, whether it's full-time, part-time, or even occasional help, all on one simple platform. On Care.com, you can search for caregivers, view rates, and find care that fits your budget and schedule. How convenient is that? Check out Care.com to get the support and the break you need.
Time to play Best Fins, a match game with a zest. Among millions of players, can you become the best? No need to invest. Your free download awaits. With 9,000 levels, you'll be quite impressed. No Wi-Fi needed, just be our guest. At Best Fins, you'll be gaming at your best. Download Best Fins for free now. No need to wait. Wait? That doesn't rhyme. Never mind. Download Best Fins, it's great. Available in App Store and Google Play.
We're back, and we're talking about getting curious about the use of this phrase, I'm only having sex because you want it. Like I said before the break, yes, because it's very clearly about sexual intimacy, that is one of the pillars of intimacy that is clearly needing to be addressed, but it's not the only pillar. Because what I found in coaching folks over the last, 10, 11 years now is that typically when there are cracks in the other pillars, the sexual intimacy pillar is the most tangible expression of that. Like if we've got hurts, if we've got resentments, if we're not spending time together, if all of this other stuff is going on, then I might not want to have sex with you. I might not be into it. I might not be able to get engaged. I just flat out won't do it, right? That kind of thing. And so it is important to look at all of the other 5 pillars, your emotional, your physical, your financial, your spiritual, and recreational pillars, and say, okay, what else is going on between us? What haven't we addressed? Like, I will tell you, in those years, like Tony and I weren't spending time together. It was a very roommate syndrome marriage, right? Like we were just, trucking along, doing the grind, not investing in ourselves, not investing in the marriage, we weren't playing games. We weren't, sitting around on the couch. We weren't going for walk and talks. We weren't doing any of those things. And so when he'd be like, I want to have sex. And I'm like, I got nothing to like, where's our connection? When was the last time we had a conversation about something more than like the bills, the kids, or groceries?
Yeah. And, if you want to go deeper with your 6 pillars of intimacy, I know many of you have picked up the book. You've loved it, the workbook. I just want to let you know we have the 6 Pillars of Intimacy virtual seminar, which is an 8-hour seminar that Elise and I have done. It's completely recorded. It's all digital. But if you're like, man, you're talking about some things that are really starting to resonate with me, and yet how do I go deeper in this? How do I understand the cracks more? How do I look at, and how do we look at each of these pillars and determine what we need to do then I'd highly suggest that you pick this up. It's called the 6 Pillars of Intimacy Virtual Seminar. I'll put a link here in the episode notes for you, but this will allow you to start going deeper. And you can do it however you want. I get it. It's 8 hours long. You can break it up into however you want it to be. But here's the thing that we said at the top, even with that hug. How are you going to be intentional on how are you going to take action on these so that the phrase, I'm only having sex because you want it, doesn't come up again and again and again and becomes a cyclical situation that Elise and I even found ourselves in many, many years ago.
Absolutely. Because, first and foremost, you have to look at the 6 pillars. What's happening? Are you having conversations? Right? Are you getting to know who your spouse is now? Have you been through a lot and you just kind of drifted apart in the communication world? Have you stopped touching one another? It literally was on a coaching call yesterday, and I've got this couple and we're working through strengthening each one of their 6 pillars, and we were talking about physical intimacy, because the wife had said, hey, I need more of the emotional and the physical, and so we were talking about different
physical intimacy being the non-sexual
touch. Yes, thank you. And so we were talking about it, and he works out of the home. She's home with the kids. Like that's their dynamic, which is the dynamic in a lot of homes these days. And, just talking about the fact that they want to kiss and hug more, but specifically when he's done with his workday, being able to have some kind of kiss, hug moment to really, one, signify that transition, but also to physically connect back as husband and wife and not just as, business owner and mom, but to come back and kind of take off those hats and come back and go, okay, what is the husband-wife hat, right? And create that transition. What's going on with your finances? I will tell you, it's so well documented, studies all over the place, that when there is financial strife, sex can be one of those things because of the insecurity. Sex, specifically for women, can be very hard because she's just dealing with worry and things like that. Not that the man is not dealing with worry. Men process and compartmentalize their stress and worries a little differently.
We can have financial issues, and we've had financial issues. I'll compartmentalize my financial issues.
I still want to have sex.
To be sexually intimate with Elisa. And I mean, I just can't. I'm just like, man, for half an hour, 45 minutes, if it's something I don't have to think about, let's go have fun and get this off of my, top of mind, and let me just enjoy you and please you.
When it comes to your recreational intimacy, are the two of you spending time together doing things that are fun? Or have you just become so we've just got our to-do list and our tasks, and so we're not I this whole month of, end of July, beginning of August, I'm talking to all my coaching clients. Everybody's got vacations. I'm hearing about people going to South Dakota. I'm hearing about people going to the lake. I'm hearing about people taking the R. Everybody's doing stuff, right? But if you don't have that going on, what are you doing? I talked to one couple yesterday. I'm like, keep a deck of cards handy and just play a card game just to connect in a different way and take your mind off of we've got to talk about us, that kind of thing. But it's getting into this place also of going, hey, what happened? When did this shift? And this
you did miss spiritual intimacy.
Oh, I did miss spiritual intimacy.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I just want to say that because I do believe that's important for us in marriage, and are you praying together? Are you doing a devotional? Are you attending church services together? Are you serving together? There are many different ways that we can build that and strengthen that pillar in different seasons of our lives. I know many couples who honestly pray every night together. There are others who love their devotionals. There are others who serve together, do mission trips together. So what is it for you that allows the two of you to strengthen that pillar and all your pillars?
And I would say something, I said at the beginning of this episode, most couples don't start off when they first get married with this phrase as part of the vocabulary. I'm only having sex because you want it. Typically couples get married and they're super excited about having sex, and they're having sex, and there is some point in time in your marriage when something happened or circumstances changed, and this phrase got introduced into your marriage. And it's so important in the healing process and the restoration process to go, when did that happen? What was going on between us? What were we not addressing? What hurts had happened? What disappointment? What happened? And let's address where that came from, so that we can start changing the narrative going forward. Otherwise, that narrative just plays on repeat. Oh, I'm only having sex with you want. And I will tell you, you can repeat that statement as a woman who did it. You can repeat that statement so much that is just like, I'm just a lump on a log. I'm only having sex with you because you want it. Mm-hmm. I will tell you, yes. Like every once in a while where I'm like, Tony even said it. But now it's like, no, we have learned how to strengthen this pillar together. Mm-hmm. We've learned how to look at the other 5 and go, hey, these actually have to be strong. There's a reason when I wrote the book, you guys, that sexual intimacy was the 6th pillar and not the 1st pillar. Because it's looking at all that and saying, how do we build this together? What do we need to discover about who we are right now and the healing that we might both need to go, yeah, that happened then. We actually need to address it. We need to talk forgiveness. We need to talk healing around it. And we need to recognize that we are not the same people perpetuating the same things that happened back then. I can actually create a different narrative about my sex life. I don't have to keep saying I'm only having sex because you want it. I can actually say, now I'm having sex because we both enjoy it. I'm having sex because, like the one wife said in the comments, because my husband knows how to pleasure me and that's a good thing for me. Like I have different statements now that's not the narrative, and I show up differently in my bedroom with my husband because my narrative and the statements that I'm saying to him and to myself are vastly different than they were back when they were in that season. Mm-hmm. And I have to think I show up a little differently.
Absolutely. No, and here's the thing. Change can happen. That's the big thing when we look at this phrase and what's happening. If there has been trauma, if there has been hurt, if there's been something in your life or in your marriage that has caused you to utter these words over and over again, you need to address that individually and together. Because there's one thing I think I've learned over the years of being married, and especially when it comes to our sexual intimacy. When hurts happen, this is one area that we can suppress the desires and just push them off. Even as a man, even as a husband, I was able to do that at times in my life and just go like, this is just what it is. That's the way, you know what I mean? Again, it's the script. It's the belief statements that I'm saying. It's the hurts. It's the pain. It's the anger. It's the strife. It's financial ruin. I mean, been there, done that. And I can look back and go, in every time in life when these words were uttered, and either by Elisa or myself, it's because we weren't willing to deal with the hurt, the pain, the unforgiveness, the anger. And so, are you willing to get help? Are you willing to address that? Because what's going on internally, and in mind, body, and spirit, I believe that, it is going to impact your sexual intimacy. And so you don't have to sit there anymore. You've been listening. You've been going, yes, I want and I desire, and we desire an extraordinary marriage. And yet maybe there's still some things that you're holding on to. It's that close gripped hand. You're just holding on for dear life. And God's just saying, hey, open up, let go, so I can get something new into you. And I'm saying that even to myself right now. Moving across country, God said, let go of a bunch of stuff. And that's hard. And so how do we, in you, go, I'm willing to let go? And who is it that is going to come alongside me, or who is it that I can find? If you want to look at coaching with Elisa, go to oneextraordinarymarriage.com/coaching. Apply. There's no obligation, but get started.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's so powerful to think about the fact that those words are often uttered in hurt because we aren't facing the actual deeper issues. Mm-hmm. And it takes courage. We talk about this, this is something we talk about a lot in the Bold Wives Club about being brave. It takes bravery to face those things, to have the conversations, and to recognize that strong marriages, extraordinary marriages, do focus on all 6 pillars. Not just the 2 or 3 that you really like, not just the 2 or 3 that are really easy for you, but all 6. And couples work together to make all 6 pillars strong. And so, like, I encourage you this week, like, has this phrase taken up resonance in your home? Is this something that you need to address? And not just the fact that it's being uttered, as we know about 50% of you have heard it or said it, but what's behind it? Because too often we're scared to see what's behind a phrase like that. And yet the real breakthrough is when we say, you know what, we're going to address it and we're going to move forward from it.
Yeah. You know, we're going to end it on that. I mean, that was super powerful by Elisa, and I just love what she had to say. So I'm going to end this with what we always do in saying, you guys have yourselves an amazing week. You guys are special. You're part of the one family. And that doesn't go unnoticed. You're here. You're being intentional. You're taking action. What is it that you need to do this week so that way you have the sexual intimacy? You can strengthen that pillar and have something that's magical and expressive to the 2 of you, and that fills the both of you. You guys have yourselves a fantastic week. We'll catch you next week. Love you guys.